This is Leslie Sparks. Most people look at swimming as a simple sport instead of all the hard work that goes into becoming a competitive swimmer. Unless you've been a competitive swimmer before, you may not realize this or understand that. Swimmers usually stick to their own stroke or certain events that they know that they can improve in and excel in, and they'll work continuously to do so. While researching all of this about the sport so that I could inform you on it, I was able to expand my own knowledge of the sport. As an ex-competitive swimmer, I'm going to be informing you on this sport. And I will start off by telling you how swimming even became a sport and how it arose in the Olympics. Then I will inform you on the everyday life of a swimmer and what daily routines go into play for a competitive swimmer. And lastly, I will give you some insight on what meets look like. To start off, swimming was just a leisurely activity to do to pass time. This was seen back in the day, even till the Stone Ages. They've seen drawings on cave walls from cavemen. But then, in the early 19th century, this is wherever it became to really take off. The National Swimming Society of Great Britain started holding small competitions. The more that this was heard of, the more it grew. Early on, breaststroke was the only stroke swum, and then the front crawl was introduced. Front crawl came about when an Englishman had traveled to South America, and he saw the natives swimming this. Front crawl is basically a form of freestyle. It's just a lesser improved form. The front crawl was noticed that they had a scissor kick, and this is what made it seem to be faster. And then later, in the 1880s, the flutter kick was added to the front crawl, which turned it into what we know as today as freestyle. Swimming has been featured in the Olympics since 1896. The first events were just freestyle and breaststroke. And then later in 1904, backstroke was included. Now you may be wondering, well, what happened to the fourth stroke? Well, that came along later, and it was not accepted as you'd think it would be. Whenever people started discovering that you could bring both arms over your head and go faster, the idea was not taken seriously, and it was forbidden at one point. But eventually it gave birth to butterfly, the fourth and final stroke, in 1956, when it was allowed in the Olympic Games. And then women were allowed to compete in the beginning of 1912. Now that you've been informed in some of the history of swimming, I'll tell you about an everyday workout, or just the everyday life of a swimmer. Swimmers, they must keep up with the structure schedule, and they can't get off by one day, or it's that much harder to make up. Drylands workouts are usually what starts off a day. Drylands are a very important part of swimming because they are exercises and stretches that warm up the body, they build your strength, and they increase your flexibility, which is really needed in swimming because you have to make sure you're working out all parts of your body, not just what's getting worked out in the pool. Morning workouts will just be light cardio with drylands and weights. And after that's done, you usually go to the pool and you'll do light workouts. Just simple 25 circuits or 50 circuits, and you're doing little exercises. You're not getting into all the hard drills. Then, once you've done all those little exercises, you'll be able to move on to what comes on later in the day. And drylands is based on how long you have before your meet. You're going to be doing more when there's longer time between it, and then once the meet is closer, you're not going to be working out as hard because you're trying to save as much energy as you can. In the afternoon workouts, this is where drills are incorporated and you're really focusing on your stroke that you're trying to work on for your meet. This is where it gets hard. Endurance and skill is concentrated on. There's certain drills that you can use to work on specific strokes. And also you'll be able to increase your distance. You want to make sure you're taking care of your body while you're doing this and watching what you put into your body. You want to make sure you're drinking plenty of water, eating the right things. You want to make sure you're getting enough calories into your body so that you can burn that off in every workout. Also, plenty of sleep is needed. Even 2 nights before staying up late is going to affect you those next 2 days. The long days of workouts may be tiring and strenuous on a swimmer, but they're worth it in the end because the results pay off. Lastly, a swimmer will focus on their stroke until they have increased their ability to swim as fast as they want. Typically, a swimmer sticks with their 1 stroke or 2 strokes, depending on how many events they end up doing in a meet. But a swimmer has to remember there's only so many events you can participate in. You can do 3. So you could do 2 individual in a relay or an individual and 2 relays. Meets can be fun, but there's some ground rules to follow. You have to make sure that you do not false start or that you streamline too long right off the block. These things can get you disqualified. Also, you have to be careful on your flip turns and your finishes. You have to make sure you touch the wall with both hands and that you do them correctly. There's such thing as a stroke and turn judge that are in every lane. And during the meets, they're watching the swimmers and making sure that each stroke that they're doing is following the guidelines of USA Swimming. And if it's not, they have the ability to disqualify you. In conclusion, swimming can take a lot of time and effort, but the hard work always pays off in the end. And once you understand the concepts of swimming, you'll be able to realize how amazing this sport is.